The following is a presentation of the Six Arrows Radio Network.
Episode 59er, Ham Radio 360 Podcast. Youth in the amateur radio hobby, some congratulatory news. We've got some announcements, some giveaway information, and more all coming up.
CQ. This is AB4WS, Alpha Bravo 4 Whiskey Sierra, Jack Prindle in Big Bone, Kentucky, and you're listening to Ham Radio 360 Podcast.
MTCRadio.com presents Ham Radio 360, the podcast, with your host, Cale Nelson, K4CDN.
Sweating to the oldies down here in South Carolina. It is Kilo 4 Charlie Delta November, K4CDN. Your host, Cale Nelson. Thank you for tuning in, for plugging us in, taking us with you as you exercise, as you sit on the couch, pretend to work at work, drive in to work or home. Guys, we appreciate you being with us. I know that your time is very precious, as is mine, and I'm so thankful you're spending this time with us here. We do this show every other week. In between those episodes, we do the Workbench Show, which I know you guys are digging, and we're just excited to be able to bring this content to you to hopefully enhance your amateur radio hobby experience. Just this week at Huntsville, Alabama, they had the big Huntsville Ham Fest. Yeah, I saw a lot of pictures. Of course, I didn't get to go. But I saw some news from Kenwood, the brand new Kenwood TH Delta 74. That's the new handheld D-Star 222 meters and 440 handy-talkie with built-in APRS. I think it's got a TNC in there, GPS, I believe. It's just kind of feature-laden. And guess what, guys? It won't be long till it's available. They said shipping possibly within 60 days with an MSRP of $650. Now, I've looked at the website, mtcradio.com, my favorite Kenwood dealer. Don't have them up there yet, but don't be dismayed. If you're interested in getting your hands on one of those quick, go ahead and give Richard a call. Let Richard know you heard about him here on Ham Radio 360 Podcast. Richard Lenore being the owner, proprietor of mtcradio.com. Get your best deal on the brand new Kenwood handy-talkie, the TH Delta 74, coming out really, really soon. And exciting to see this thing. D-Star, APRS, everything in one handy-talkie, plus 3 bands. It's kind of like one of what everybody's been begging someone to make for the last couple of years. You'll be able to find it soon at mtcradio.com. Let them know that Kel from Ham Radio 360 Podcast sent you. You'll get your best deal, guaranteed. Back to the Huntsville Ham Fest. Before we go any further, I want to just share with you my congratulations to a young man, Skylar Fennell, Kilo Delta Zero Whiskey Hotel Bravo, who was nominated as the Amateur Radio Newsline Young Ham of the Year, presented by our buddy Don Wilbanks, Alpha Echo 5 Delta Whiskey. Saw some great pictures online of Skylar receiving his presentation. You know, it's kind of funny that this all happened when this show comes out. I didn't realize that Sterling was going to be there this week, but it's really cool to see young amateurs very involved in the hobby. And again, just want to send our congratulations to Skylar Fennell. His call again is Kilo Delta Zero Whiskey Hotel Bravo. Good job, young man. And Don, thanks for carrying the torch there. We're really excited to see those things move forward. You know, one of the benefits of going to the most popular trade show in your hobby that you're podcasting about is you get to meet a lot of cool, awesome, amazingly great people, like those of you I shook hands with, spent some time with, hung out with at Hamvention. You know, that doesn't happen all the time for me. I never dreamt that would happen, but it did, and you made it possible. Thank you very much. During the time I was at Hamvention, I got to meet up with a young man, spend some time with him, and was just really, really just digging this kid all over. He's just an awesome guy. His name is Sterling Coffey. His call is November 0 Sierra Charlie. And Sterling has a lot to share with us, and we're going to get right into this. You guys don't go anywhere. If you're interested in getting youth into the hobby, this show is for you. Sterling, welcome to Ham Radio 360 Podcast.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm really, really happy to be here.
You know, I was really, really excited to get to meet all of our listeners there. You came by a couple of times, hung out. Jeremy and I both got to spend some time with you, and I didn't ever think that you and I would be here on the podcast together, but I didn't really know what you were doing in the hobby. It was kind of the first time that I'd made the connection with you and had seen you on Twitter and whatnot. You just got back from a big trip And I want to talk about that big trip in just a couple of minutes. But first, I want you to tell us who you are and what you're doing with amateur radio.
All right, so I'm Sterling Coffey, N0SSC, as you mentioned, and I've been in radio since 2007 or so. I got my license in junior year of high school, maybe sophomore year of high school. I'm my technician, and then I upgraded pretty shortly after to a general and an extra. I would always read the extra class manual in my literature arts 4 class to the chagrin of my teacher. But as a bonus to that, I wrote an essay for it was on the National Electric Cooperative, and it was about ham radio in Haiti and how the National Electric Cooperative gave out solar panels. And there's a story about a ham in Haiti who powered a ham radio station, all on solar energy, and it helped out immensely during the earthquake. So with this essay that I talked about in ham radio in Haiti, as well as the history of the National Electric Cooperatives thing, I got a trip to go to Washington, D.C. for 7 days. Nice. All expenses paid. So it was pretty cool. The whole reason why I'm in a ham radio, it's just I'm a nerdy guy. I'm a techno addict. I've always loved radios since I was like 5 years old. I had a walkie-talkie. I couldn't talk to my parents without, giving my dad a walkie-talkie and say, go to the other side of the house. I can't, we have to talk through the radio. And then eventually it became the other side of the street and the other side of the neighborhood. And, I was putting things like carrots and wire hangers in the antenna to see if I could get out farther and farther. And eventually it just kind of grew. I got FRS radios. I got into CB radio. And there I met a friend in high school who gave me a technician manual. And then my mom was into police scanning, so I heard some hams on a repeater, and that really blew my mind that there were these people talking about, they're talking about the weather, antennas, and the repeater and the field day, and I was like, what are all these terms? I think this is what I need in my life. So I pursued that, got a license, and here I am. So beyond that, aside from operating, I like contesting. Sweepstakes is one of my favorite contests. Field day as well. I'm really into youth because I'm 24 years old, and I haven't been in this for that long comparatively. So back in, I think, 2011 or 2010, the ARRL found my YouTube channel, and they noticed I did a lot of ham radio stuff, like real, like DXing, CW contacts, this sort of thing, like talking about your station, talking about your antenna. And they said, this must be a smart guy. And they hired me as a youth editor. And so I would write a youth article every month for the ARRL on their web. And that was a great gig for about 2 years. After that passed, I got into college, so I had to get out of it because college was pretty hectic. But in college, I got into W0EEE, W0EEE, which was the radio club at Missouri S&T in Rolla, Missouri. There I became the vice president and the president, and we installed repeaters, got D-Star repeaters, put up a new tower, revitalized the shack and the whole club. We started integrating with other teams like the Mars Rover Design Team, the Solar Car Team, the IEEE division there, and had a lot of fun. So I tried to keep up to date with YouTube and youth and ham radio, and then after college, sort of got out of it because life was a struggle, getting into a job, getting finances taken care of, moving in, finding my girlfriend who's now my fiance. But now all that's settled, and now I'm back into the game. So I know that was probably a really long introduction.
Well, let me just take you one step further. Then you'll get married, then you'll have kids, and then you'll do your best to fight for a moment to get on the radio.
Whoa, we're not going that fast. I still got some world traveling and some ham radio to accomplish before the next life milestone. But actually the wedding's coming up in a few years, so
cool. Hopefully
there will be a good amount of time between that and children.
I'm a 17-year vet of the married thing, 13-year vet of dadhood, so they're both awesome. Don't put it off too long. They're both have been phenomenal for me. I don't know that she could say the same thing, but well, that's quite a story. Going back to the front end, man, you sounded just like me. I mean, it's ridiculous. And what's so funny when I talk to people for the show, we all seem to have the same story. I mean, we were little nerdy kids who got walkie-talkies that you put 9-volt batteries in after you stuck them to your tongue to make sure they worked.
We tore the TVs apart, tore radios apart, tore all this stuff.
It was ridiculous, and I just thought I was the only one that way. Now I find out that there's 700,000 of us in the continental U.S.
that
are really weird too. So that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. It sounds like quite a trip, and congratulations for your recognitions and your time that you've had in. Conquered many things and crossed many bridges, which leads me to my next question. When the two random guys pulled up beside you at the traffic light in Dayton, Ohio, you didn't really expect to have someone holler at you from
I looked
across
over
the way.
and I was like, I kind of did a double take, like, who's that? Oh wait, that's Kale, and I watched this podcast, and Jeremy too. Like, yeah, we had a 10-second conversation at the stoplight on I forget the road, just leaving Dayton that Sunday.
I was like, hey, look.
That was hilarious.
It was really cool. So
and this is after meeting you guys at the Pactana booth, and there I bought a Pactana and one of the masts, the 30-foot masts, fiberglass extendo poles.
Yeah.
So
cool. Have you had any chance to use that?
Yeah, I used the pole for the Pactana, but my FT817 has problems. The day actually when I was using a buddy pole, my friend's buddy pole, something in the radio messed up, and now it doesn't put out any power. So I've been digging into its guts to try to figure it out. I've replaced the finals and did a few other things, but still no dice. But I have a backup radio. I put that on the air for a little bit, made a few contacts. It works, but the roof of my apartment, it's in downtown St. Louis, so there's just noise everywhere.
Yeah.
With a vertical antenna, it's really noisy. So I'm looking at the loops and such. So
yeah. Well, good stuff, man. It's great, like I said, to have you on. It's great to catch up with you again. I've been following you on Twitter, and you have been world traveling. I try.
Lately. Yeah, now that I've graduated and I have a little bit of income, I've been going all over the place just for fun. Like I've go to like just a couple weekends ago I was at Portland for a beer festival. I was in Asheville, North Carolina. I go to Atlanta frequently because my fiance's from there, but just recently the real talk of the day is this Yoda trip in Austria that I went to.
Yeah, that was kind of like out of the blue.
Yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks prior to it. I got an email from Ward Silver, N0A, or actually Glenn Johnson, W0GJ, who CC'd Ward Silver, N0AX, and these are some bigwigs in the ham radio world. Ward is the president of YASME Foundation, which is just a ham radio kind of foundation that gives out scholarships and grants to people who excel in ham radio. Glenn Johnson is the vice president, I believe, or maybe the president of the Northern California DX Foundation, and they do sort of the same thing. They also sponsor tons of DXpeditions. And these are bigwigs. Like Ward Silver wrote the book on ham radio for Dummies. And they emailed me out of the blue. Yeah, it's it's a good one. And he also edits a lot of the handbook as well, so it's an even bigger one.
Yeah.
Anyway, they emailed me out of the blue saying, like, hey, Sterling, there's this thing called Yoda, and I've heard of Yoda. It's Youngsters on the Air. It's this camp that the IRAU Region 1 does every year, and they pick a different country every year. This year was Austria, last year it was Italy, and then the year before it was Estonia, Germany. I'm kind of mixing up. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's all on their website, ham-yoda.com. The history and pictures and all that. Basically, it's a collection or a gathering of about 100, 120 young people aged between 15 and 26, 25 or so that are all like us. They're hams, but they're young. They're really into the hobby in their specific way, and they're like, for example, we had a couple guys who could do Morse code at 60 words per minute while drinking a coffee and having a conversation with 3 people. There was some professional ARDF, the amateur radio direction finding, or orienteering, like as a sport, as a cross-country sport, not just, running around the city with a tape measure Yagi. This is like actually sprinting to go find foxes in the woods, like, using a map and a compass, like some hard stuff. Some real big contest guys, some guys who travel with the DP6T mobile contesting team, and they brought this 40-meter tall, about, 100, 33 meters to 100 feet. It's just a bit taller than 100 feet, mobile, militarized mast with a big 10-element, 12-element opti-beam on top with the Yoda flag. And we made 7,000 contacts using the Oscar Echo 2 Yankee Oscar Tango Alpha OE2 Yota call sign. they and the whole. I guess let me talk about the function of it,
Sure.
Or the structure. They did this in Wagrain, Austria. And after getting all the people from 30 different countries, it was about 110 participants with about a team of, I'd say, 20 or 30 sponsors, not really sponsors, but like adults, I would say, chaperones, people who are leading the camp who aren't necessarily adults. Some of them are youngsters as well. And a whole bunch of sponsors like Flex Radio, ICOM, even the city of Wagrain, the IRAU, and then, of course, YASME, NCDXF, those guys funded me and Sam Rose, KC2 LRC, to go as the U.S. team. They also funded the Ethiopian team as well as the Kosovo team to go. And it's all paid for mostly by grants and sponsors like that. And the only cost to the participant is €25. So it's really, really cheap. And you go for a week to this, basically it's like a scout camp or a youth hotel, and do workshops. We built antennas. We played with the HamNet, which is like multimedia, high-speed multimedia or mesh networking. We did summits on the air. We did some excursions. We did castles on the air. We went to an ice cave, and we brought our radios into an ice cave and learned about like cave rescues, cave radio, how tunnels mess with radio signals, and that was pretty cool. Oh man, what else? We did so much stuff.
Wow.
Let's see. Did I say we contacted the ISS? We made a ISS contact where it was like the typical, 20 questions, rotation between 20 people making a contact over a telebridge to the ISS. And so that was a lot of fun. Nice. It was the first time that a conglomeration of amateur radio youth has contacted the ISS. So there was a lot of cool, conversation between the astronaut and the participants down there as well. So,
very cool.
Yeah, we did tons of stuff.
I want to get into some of the details of the trip here in the next segment. Folks, we've got Sterling Coffee with us. His call is November 0 Sierra Charlie, and we'll be back right here in a minute on the... I said that wrong. I'm just going to let this run for a second. I used to be on the radio, FM radio, and I would say back coming up on the Z, because that was WHRZ, and it almost came out. I'll have to go back and fix that real quick. Seriously, my tongue was forming it, and I was like, ugh. Okay, all right. Let me redo that. And you ask about, I never do this. And I thought I was past being on the Z. So, all right. So we'll catch back up. We're going to continue this conversation with Sterling Coffee, November 0 Sierra Charlie, here in just a moment on Ham Radio 360 podcast.
Hi, Dan, KB6NU here. Whether you're studying for your tech license or looking to upgrade to general or extra, you should check out my no-nonsense amateur radio license study guides. Written in my easy-to-understand, no-nonsense style, they really are the easiest way to learn what you need to know to pass the test. And they are always up to date. The PDF version of the Technician Class Study Guide is free on my website at kb6nu.com/podcast, and all my study guides are available in print, PDF, Kindle, and EPUB versions. Let me help you have more fun with ham radio. Go to kb6nu.com/podcast and get started today.
Back with Sterling Coffee, November 0 Sierra Charlie. And Sterling is recently back from his Yoda trip, and he kind of gave us some ideas of what happened over there. Let's get a little deeper into that, Sterling. Man, the caving thing would be really cool as long as they didn't ask me to go anywhere smaller than I am. I mean, if I could at least crawl on my hands and knees, I'd probably be okay. Anything thinner than that, I'm not a snake.
Oh no, this cave was massive. It's an ice cave, and if you want to look it up. It's called the Isriesenwelt. I tried to spell that one.
Yeah.
But if you look up ice cave in Austria, there are pictures of it's very expansive. Like imagine like a football sized stadium in this cave. There's some spots where the ceiling gets to about 6 feet, but you still can see around you. And it's really cool because they use like magnesium flares and oil powered lanterns as the lighting. So it's kind of got this cool romance feeling, or this really rustic, like original, like you're the cave explorer. And it's also a cold 30 degrees at all times because it's an ice cave. So we had a parka. And when you stepped outside, the pressure differential was so big, the wind coming out of the cave would be at around like 60, 70, almost 100 miles per hour. Because it was so cold. All that cold air wants to rush out into the hot, like, mountain air.
Yeah.
That was fun. You could like fly a plane into it.
Sounds like something from a Batman movie or something.
Yeah, it was cool.
So tell us a little bit about you did cave-ins, you did castles on the air. I know this is amateur radio, so we're doing things like we would do it here in the States, but you were doing it with a group of people that you probably never met personally before. I'm sure you had some barriers there with the languages.
Actually, surprisingly, no. Everybody spoke English, and some people spoke it a little like more broken
right, kind of like
than others, but. But everybody was very, very easy to talk to. The camp language was actually English. So
that's cool. Amateur radio's language is English. Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was like as if we didn't. I never met any of these people before, but once we like arrived and went through like the icebreaker, began learning about each other's interest in ham radio and why we're all here, it was like. These are all my best friends now. I now know 110 people in 30-something countries in Europe and Africa and Russia who I could basically just call up and say, hey, I'm coming over. Can I, crash on your couch for a while and go visit Munich or something, and then also operate their station. It was really great.
What was probably the highlight? What did you enjoy most? Not necessarily the camaraderie, but some of the events. Which one did you enjoy the most participating in?
Aside from the camaraderie and just like realizing that, hey, there's all these young people who are just like you, and it's really that inspiring feeling. It was very, very awesome to make contact with the ISS and watch and actually be there and see the excitement and the grins and the nervousness in the voices of the participants. I didn't make a contact myself. There was 100 people, 120 people, and it was limited to about 20 participants for that contact. But still, being there, being a part of it was very ooh, wow, this is cool. That's an actual astronaut we're talking to right now
in space.
In space. And then next to that, going to the soda trip, I went to a mountain called, let me see if I have a picture, Greisenkark. It's a 2,000 meter mountain. So it's just above. Just where the trees stop growing and it's just kind of grassy. Mm-hmm. Top of this mountain is a big cross and a bunch of rocks, and we set up 4 HF stations, literally 4 summits on the air. One guy had a 30-foot pole, another guy had an Alex loop, another guy had a dipole stringing over to the cross, and a bunch of people had VHF Yagis and whatnot. Being able to see this country that I've never seen, the Alps in Austria, it's just beautiful. And having everybody up there experience the same thing, having people, some guys were playing with ham radios, some guys were just sitting on rocks being like, wow, this is the pinnacle of my life for this whole year. And it was me right there, sitting on a rock, hands stretched out like I'm the king, I'm the top of the world.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And the real reward, after, hiking up these mountains, there's a big reward center activation in the brain there. So those were probably two of my favorite events.
And the contacts log, that's got to be a lot of fun. Yeah,
the special event, OE2YOTA. So let's see, ICOM, Flex Radio, Kenwood, and even Yaesu, all 4 of the big vendors had their flagship radios, and these are their $10,000 radios sitting there on the table at the YOTA station, all connected up to, a couple were connected to the Yagi on the militarized mast, mobile mast, and then a couple were on dipoles here and there. That was a lot of fun. We had all 4 stations almost active all the time. There's even a Earth Moon Earth station, and we made contact via the moon using JT9 or JT65 or something.
Wow.
With just a Yagi pointed at the moon, 12 element, 10 element Yagi. I was mounted on a ladder.
It was just kind of like a geek out weekend.
Yeah,
that lasted
absolutely.
more than a weekend in another country with 100 of your newest best friends.
Yeah, and there was a whole schedule of things. Every day there were probably about 2 to 4 workshops. Building antennas was one of them. We took this roll up like phone cable thing. It was similar to a chalk line. You can just roll it up and string it out real fast. We built I think it was a 61-to-1 transformer balun and just wired up, connected it up to some wire, and there you have an in-fed all-in-one in about a 5-inch diameter circle this thing would roll up into. We did some meteor scatter. That was pretty cool. There's a radar in France that you can hear over, it's like 143 megahertz, so it's just under 2 meters. This kind of like space fence radar that detects, I think it's used for determining satellite orbits. You can listen to meteor pings on this radar because it's just a carrier wave. If you were really close to it, you just hear a strong tone, single tone. But since you're really far away, you're out of line of sight. You have to listen to the bounces off of meteors and aircraft. So we learned about meteor scatter, and that was really cool. It's something I always kind of wanted to do but never got into, and there it was. We all got Raspberry Pis, and we had Whisper beacons. We built Whisper beacons and low-pass filters with Raspberry Pis and some parts. We had to wind our own toroids again. It was a lot of fun. Played with HamNet, which is Europe's big mesh network. And that's really cool because you can communicate across the continent of Europe, that is, all over HamNet. And it's mostly like 5.8 gigahertz. And they also gave us the routers and some antennas included, so we could connect to the HamNet and transmit all over Europe. And we also played with APRS and did a little bit with that. Everybody kind of knew what APRS was, and those who didn't just got to learn about it, and we just transmitted a bunch of packets here and there.
Cool. It sounds like something that all of us, whether we're a youth or a young man or a very old man, would really get a kick out of being a participant.
Everybody would. Like, the biggest takeaway from all of these events is like this week's schedule is like a year's worth of events for your ham radio club. So go build some antennas, VHF, UHF, HF antennas, or learn about HamNet, or go do, we did some IMCOM. We had like 4 stations on IMCOM. One was like Pactor, another one was WinLink, another one was using FLDigi, FLARC, FLARQ, a bunch of words y'all should probably Google. Since we don't have much time to go through every little detail because there's just so much packed into it. But all these like presentations and things are available on their website, and you can take these, adapt them for your club, and then use them as a presentation so that you can get more hands-on activities. It's one of the things I really noticed in a lot of clubs is that there's just a lot of business, a lot of politics, but there's not any let's do stuff. Let's go out and, build a thing or talk to people, instead of just sitting there and talking about, your next, breakfast at Denny's or whatever.
Well, and that's, I want to segue to that if we can here in the next break, after the next break rather, talk about how we can begin implementing some of the things that you learned. There'll be some pushback from the guys who have been doing it for a very long time because they might not have done it that way in the past. But I want to talk about that, and we'll have that conversation here in just a second. Stick with us, guys. Sterling Coffee with K4CDN. His call is November 0 Sierra Sierra Charlie. Back in a bit. Our most recent show, 220 megahertz in the real world, was a hit. Had a lot of good discussion on the QRZ forums, as well as some notes from listeners. Always great to catch up with Tim and Ron from BridgecomSystems.com, our friends supplying to the amateur radio community 1.25 meter gear, or as Kel likes to say, 220 megahertz. If you're needing something to fill that void in your shack, at your repeater site, or even in your back pocket, call them today. BridgecomSystems.com for all of your 220 megahertz needs. BridgecomSystems.com. All right, we finished the last segment with Sterling telling us how great an idea it would be to visit the Yoda website, get some ideas for your local clubs, tech nights or build nights or whatever, and make some of that stuff happen. kind of getting away from the business end of things. Not to say that business is not important, but deciding on where we're going to get the donuts next week may not be the most pressing issue. And I'll tell you, I'm not what I would consider a youngster anymore, although I feel kind of young. I'm 42 years old. By and large, I'm one of the, if not probably the youngest member of the local club. Well, there's probably a couple, maybe 5 or 10 years younger than me, but not like teenagers hanging out. And even for me, I'm not really interested in the politics and the banner of things. If we're going to do something, let's do something. So as you just experienced this, and this is just Kel's opinion, and from the many conversations we've had here on the show with just numerous guests, doing something that involves doing something really seems to draw the younger crowd, the maker crowd. And, I think that's really the future lifeblood of the hobby. You just spent that time over there at the Yoda conference. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So like I was mentioning before, all of the events that were taking place here are really good, like just little tidbits of, like you can just take one of our workshops and use that as your evening activity at your radio club, monthly meeting or something. And it really is a draw to youth, because I've been to many ham radio club meetings, and I've just sat there like the youngest person in the room, the only person with brown hair, everybody else gray hair. It's really unusual.
That's pretty good
to be like that. And one thing I really didn't see was, why am I here? What fun is this, just sitting here and listening and not really getting involved? And, a lot of young people, if they show up to your club, a lot of young people are not going to be go-getters and just like say, I want to do this, I want to do that. They're going to sit in the back and just kind of watch and see how it goes on. And so if a young person comes into your club, you really have to buddy up with them, and don't be afraid to say, hey, who are you? What are you looking for in this club? That sort of thing. And then, be proactive and actually do stuff, because just young people don't really want to sit around and talk about, next week's donuts and, the changing the rules and bylaws to allow for, some, blah, blah, blah,
Exactly.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, Robert's rules, we got to follow those.
Yep.
We better stop right there. We're going to offend somebody in just a minute.
Somebody's getting mad at
you. Yeah, but you nail it. I'm 42, and you're how old are you, Sterling?
24.
Okay, you're 20. you said it a couple times. I couldn't remember. I want to get it right. 24 years old. I'm 42. So we've got about 20 years split between us. But there's kids that are younger than you now. I've got a bunch of kids, and they're not necessarily typical, of course, because their dad's not. But I've got a lot of nieces and nephews, and they're into their phones all the time, and it seems like they couldn't carry a conversation in a bucket if you handed it to them full. So what you made a very good point there. You've got a youth, let's say, that comes into the meeting. More than likely, they're not going to be the one chomping at the bit and raising their hand and trying to get your attention so you can put them to work. It's going to be something that you're going to kind of have to finesse yourself and them into a little bit. It's going to take some forethought and some planning to do that. And they're out there, guys. I mean, there are people just like Sterling and younger who want to come to your club, participate, learn about amateur radio. We got to figure out how to make that a good transition. It's kind of like trying to find a new church if you're into that. And that's kind of tough sometimes because you don't know where you're going to fit in. And then you've got these kids that are already socially awkward going to hang out with a bunch of loud old men.
True story.
Yeah. I mean, it can be tough. So, as a younger person, Sterling, tell us how we can, as older folks, welcome you into the fold.
So as older folks, like I said, one of the real big things you should do if a young person comes into your club is to buddy up with them and make sure that they are not being ignored. Because a lot of times, I sat there, I was ignored, and I left the club meeting like goodbye. Nobody wanted to say hi because I didn't want to say hi because I was nervous. Like I was hoping somebody would come in and say, hey,
right,
here's a brochure or something. Here's something we're going to do, for field day or whatever. I think that's one of the big things because I hear a lot of stories about how Elmers are probably the biggest retention makers. I don't know a better word for it, but they do the most to help retain the youth that we do grab. So, because they they're proactive and passionate. They, maybe call or email or every time there's a club meeting, say, hey, how have you been doing at ham radio? Do you get our license yet? Do you need need help with the manual, need help with the test or anything like that?
Right.
Or even just, kind of adopt them as your buddy, as your El Marie. Take them to your station. If you have a really nice station, operate some, do contesting or do a really big push to get youth at your field day. Because that's how I got really sunk in, how the hook really sunk into me is field day. They set me behind a radio and I listened for a while one guy was operating, logging and doing the context at the same time. And then he said, okay, here's the computer. You can start logging and, start trying to understand the phonetics. And then we switched roles and I started making the contacts. And after a while, I was the one doing the logging and the contacting. And it was very, very stressful. And it was very like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm so nervous. But that kind of moment is what's really needed to set the hook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You went home ready to get you went home ready to get your ticket. I mean, you were
I
you were
told
there.
my mom,
Yeah.
I need to get an extra class license. I need to get a dipole. I need to get a radio right now so I can do this like all the time. And so it was.
Awesome. That's a great story, man. I tell you, it takes stuff like that, and like I said, going back to the beginning of the show, you and I have a lot in common. Like a lot of other hams, we've been touched with this desire to communicate for many, many years. They're still out there. Maybe they don't have CB radios in their mom's car anymore. Maybe they don't have a scanner, but they've probably seen a Raspberry Pi. They've probably seen an RTL SDR dongle. They're seeing these things around them, and to be able to show them how to put that into practice. Of course, we as the older crew are going to have to know how to do that, or at least have some ideas about how to do that. Those things are out there. They're ready. They're ripe. And I personally don't think it takes a $26 handy talkie from Amazon to get you excited about amateur radio. I think
right. it's even a $15 RTL SDR,
exactly.
like you said, or Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the technology's there. Like, we say, oh, the internet is really taking away from ham radio. It's taking all the youth away, the cell phones. Well, ham radio and the internet and cell phones are really well integrated with ham radio. You just need to see that, you have RTL SDRs that you have to plug into a computer and to be able to use. You have Raspberry Pi, which is a computer, which you can do tons of stuff with. Yeah. Like, for example, the Whisper beacon. Which just is really cool because you can have this computer putting out a 10 milliwatt signal that you can hear, that 17 different countries can hear all around the world at any one time. But
and I really want to build one of those. I meant to grab that at Dayton, and I got behind, and I think they sold out before I could get over there. So I don't know, but I missed it.
Yeah.
That's my fault. I should order one.
Yeah,
maybe I'll do
cheap
that.
too. That's the thing. Like, us youngsters don't have. Or let me say a word about youngsters. I get a lot of. I've been getting a lot of mail about youngsters on the air. A lot of it seems like youngsters is too much of a demeaning term for young people. So, if we're bringing youth on the air, YOTA to the U.S. or to IRAU region 2, I think we're going to have to call it youth on the air because that's more akin to the whippersnappers nowadays.
Yeah. Well, yeah, youngsters does sound much younger than describing, but of course we have, we say things differently here than they do in the other
right over
regions,
there. It's pretty normal. But yeah. I guess that segues me into talking about this YOTA thing. It happens in Europe and I guess IRAU region 1 only. And that's Europe and a little bit of Russia and then Africa. And we were lucky to go there because we were told by Yasmi asked by Yasmi and NCDXF to go over there for fact finding so that we can take what they know, what they do, and bring it back home. And what I really see with the YOTA thing is that the youngsters, the young people there, all realize that they're not the only young people in the hobby. When they go back to their respective clubs, they are full of inspiration to go and get more youth involvement, or at least just be that young person at the club and not be worried, not be afraid that you're the youngest person there, because we have so much more drive and we have a lot of action and activity we want to do, and that can really, really help a club. and that just by itself brings more youth into it. But the real mission here was to bring Yoda back overseas to the U.S. and to the IRA region too. And this would hopefully do the same thing if we can get a bunch of young people from this region to come together for a week, have a camp of ham radio and ham radio. Well, not ham radio only, because during Yoda we went swimming, we went out to eat at night in the towns. We went shopping. We did hiking in this castle and this ice cave, which are had ham radio tangents, but all in all, it was still kind of like a little bit of a break from the real nitty gritty like workshop stuff where you're sitting in listening to a
presentation, then doing something after that. So it was really like a perfect storm, and this has been going on for 6 years with Lisa Linders, PA2LS from the Netherlands. She was like the real beginner, the real starter of this. And what they did is took IRA Region 1 and started a youth coordinator, section. And now they have like 26 or 27, 30 members of all young people who organize Yoda every year in every different country. So there's a lot of little structure elements that we're starting to learn about. And we're going to try to bring that over here. Either, who knows who's going to sponsor it, who's going to really is it ARRL? Are we going to start with the U.S.? Are we going to go all out and do IRA Region 2 and really try to combine and see, if we can get Latin America, South America involved? I think there's a much bigger English language block there. But these are things to be learned about and really fact found in the coming, couple years, year or so.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like quite a task, but it seems to me that it would be well worth the time and expense put forward. I want to keep the conversation going here with Sterling. His call is November 0, Sierra Charlie. We'll be back with him in just a moment right here on Ham Radio 360 Podcast. One of the most recognized names in amateur radio is ICOM. One of the most recognized dealers in amateur radio is mtcradio.com. And what a better connection when you put those two together, ICOM and mtcradio.com. Yeah, they've got the brand new ID51 Alpha Plus radios, the brand new colors, and I'm digging the kind of yellow green one. I still haven't gotten one of those. I need to talk to Richard. If you're looking for some handy talkies, if you're looking for some really ruggedized gear to use in the field, if you're looking for some wonderful, maybe the hottest amateur radio rig going right now, the IC7300, you have to visit our friends, mtcradio.com. Let them know Kel sent you. Get the best deals on the net at mtcradio.com. Yes, K4CDN Kale back with Sterling Coffee. His call is November 0, Sierra Charlie. I don't make a whole lot of contacts with Zero Land calls. And is that hard to say when you're giving your call? K4 is easy for me. It's kind of got a southern twang to it anyway. Mm-hmm. Is November 0 hard to say?
Well, 0 being 2 syllables, 7 is, I guess, more, punchy. I don't know. I've always thought about getting a 5 because I'm really into the CW swing right now, and I've really wanted to change it to a 5 or a 6 or something, so it's less, because 0 is da 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 da, and that's what's really hard. It's 5 da's, and it's really annoying to send out. It makes your call so much longer. Whereas if you have a 5, it's 5 dits and it's a lot shorter. Right. But I'm real stuck to this call. People know me by my call sign. I know you by K4CDN,
yeah.
It's real hard to change it once it's your new name. It's your ham radio name. It's what's on your badge. It's what everybody knows you by.
I thought about it because I need to upgrade, and I said, well, if I upgrade, I could get one of those cool 2x2s now. Yeah. But then who would I be? So
somebody else. I knew a guy who changed his call sign almost every year, and I was like, wait, you're who now? Yeah. I thought you were. Wait, and it was real hard to keep track.
Well, and we're young, so I don't know what we'll be able to do when we get older. But talking about while we're young, let's talk about trying to implement some of this stuff. I'm not necessarily saying that Kel's going to make it a mission of his to bring Yoda to the States, but I would do my part and beginning to do my part here with the podcast as often as possible, because I believe that just in any hobby, any outreach, youth is needed. That's the lifeblood, because that's what's coming next. I've got 5 kids. I've got 3 studying right now along with my wife, which is really cool. and I hope they're going to be able to test and pass in October.
Oh, nice.
So that'd be awesome, So I'm kind of doing my youngsters on the air down here on the farm as it is. But, when I think about what all we've talked about in this call, it's really exciting to see that things like this are happening around the world. Now, my question is, why isn't this happening in the U.S.? And I know that there's two big things. There's someone's time, and then there's a lot of money. But you talk to Gordo, you talk to our buddy KB6NU. They're both, and they're not the only two. I'm just bringing them out as examples. Love those guys. They're both working to the best of their ability to bring youth into the hobby, and they've been doing amateur radio for a while. And here we are, much younger than both of those gentlemen, and you're even younger than me. Working to bring youth into the hobby. Where do we kind of start having a conversation about having something like this movement happen here in the States?
Well, like you said in the last little segment, it's going to be a big mission. It's going to be a lot of sponsors, a lot of a lot of activity, a lot of coordination and planning. Like, this was no easy task for them to do in Europe. Like, they had to use Gantt charts and project management skills, and they had basically almost a small business structure, a CEO, a CTO, and little groups of planners that would plan out and have chaperone each individual activity. So it's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a whole bunch of money. The thing is with a lot of these organizations like YASME and NCDXF, they have no problem just throwing green at young people. For example, like I said earlier, YASME helped 3 teams go to YOTA last year, and it's only a cost of €25, which is $30-something US. For the participant to go. So you see all these companies. If I had my team shirt, I would have all the sponsors, but ICOM and Yaesu, Kenwood, the big radio companies helped out with radios. A lot of radio clubs, smaller radio clubs help donate money, that sort of thing. But maybe this conversation about where we get the money from is a bit too soon. We really need to think about how do we get the momentum just flowing about how do we bring this together. And it's really a conversation between your clubs, maybe, to think about maybe we can do this on a smaller scale. Maybe we can have a camp weekend for the local youth here and there. And then we can also probably glean a lot from the Jamboree on the Air. The Boy Scouts of America do Jamboree on the Air every year, and it's a big camp of ham radio, but in Boy Scout situation, or scouting situation, where I think the goal is to get your radio patch or your Morse code patch or something like that. I'm not a Boy Scout myself, so I'm consider me clueless to the whole thing. I think that's
right. I think you're right on there. Breaking it all the way down to our local hometown area, larger than our household maybe, but thinking about your community at large, where you find yourself residing, it sounds like a great idea for a club who's into growing itself and promoting the hobby to contact maybe the local high school or junior high school science club.
Yeah.
Why not start there?
That would be a great thing. And another thing is we need all these people and this money and blah, blah, blah. But one thing I didn't mention is we need youth.
Yeah.
We need actual
somebody to come to the event.
So we need this to be marketed out and say hey guys, we need to have more interest. We have to bring the youth there. So, which is
the carrot that seems to be, the one carrot that everyone seems to be grasping for. They're what is it going to be? What's the silver bullet here for the youth? My vote is it's Morse code. I just think CW is going to make this tremendous resurgence, and it's going to just suck everybody in. But who am I?
Yeah.
If it happens, I'm taking credit for it. If it happens,
we'll see. No, I really think it's about you guys out there, the local clubs. Get the word out that you want young people to be involved and do this fun stuff. Go do ARDF, go do fox hunting, go make your field day even bigger next year. And really market it. One of the big things that we had for YOTA was an on-site 24/7 media team who did videography and photography and had a daily video log of all the activities. And I think if a lot of social networking, they were all on Facebook and all on Twitter and all of this, and they had them very well done. And I think this is a really good idea because this really gets it out to everybody, not just the young people and the older people, but just everybody. Showing like, hey, look at all these young people doing this cool stuff. That both attracts interest in the youngsters, the young people, and the older people as well. The people who will help fund and really push this to become a real thing.
Right. I think we're primed for it. Dayton was my first trip to Hamvention this past year, and I was just in awe at the reception we had by just producing a podcast. And coming home and the numbers just spiking just madly upwards. It's just been phenomenal, the reception since then. Knowing that we're impacting people, in the local clubs, you don't really kind of get that. You're like, oh well, we're meeting again. Let's go drink some coffee and eat. But you guys are really affecting what's going on around you, and you're going to kind of have what you say. You're going to have what you desire. So if you do have a desire as a local club to grow, to go out, to bring youth, to educate the younger people around you in your neighborhood, your community, start talking about it that way. Just like Sterling said, go
Absolutely.
out and bring them in. And whether it's a science club, whether you're helping out with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts are doing, amateur radio. There's a lot of things like that. Boys, what was it? Big Brothers and Big Sisters would probably be a good place to go as well. So, there's a lot of opportunity out there, Sterling, and I am just I say tickled a lot. That's just a Southern euphemism. Sorry if it offends anybody.
I
I like it, but it just comes out a lot. I am tickled you got to go. I had no idea you were going, and then all of a sudden on Twitter you're like, I'm getting on an airplane. I'm like, where's he going now?
First time I've been to Europe. Here I am, promoting youth and not just promoting it, but being a part of it. Like really
awesome,
having a blast.
Really excited you got to go, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. I almost think we could probably do a whole other show and talk about it some more. There's just,
how about a whole nother podcast?
Yeah.
You got the workbench. Now let's have the youth bench.
Hey,
the youth lounge.
You looking for a job?
Oh man, I said too much.
Yeah. Hey, y'all heard him. He offered, right? Yeah. So, the thing is that this is a great medium for that. Social media is huge. Facebook, maybe not so much for the younger generation, but it is a great way to pan ourselves to our listeners. But they're out there, and there's nerdy kids just like us living right now. I was a nerdy kid working at Radio Shack in 1988, and I had men come in, amateurs from all walks of life, begging me to get my license. And I finally did get the Gordon West study guide for the technician no code. Never tested, but that started it with me. Now, granted, Radio Shack's gone, and most nerdy kids are just sitting home looking at their phones now, but they're out there, and I think we need to go get them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And this last date, and I was really impressed that I did a video on YouTube of just like how many young people there were, not just in the youth rally. I mean, there were, dozens of young people at the youth lounge, the youth rally that Carol Perry did. But just walking around and seeing like that guy is, 24, that guy is 15, there were so many youngsters just walking around, in the ether, like, I had no idea who these, people were, but I've never seen so many young people.
Well, I went expecting to see all the jazzies running around, and they were there. But I'm like you, now you're saying that. I'm thinking, you're exactly right. There were a lot of younger people there, sub 45 years old. And I'm going to say that because I'm younger than 45. But I get what you're saying. I had kids. I had kids come up. There was a guy, I can't remember. It's on the website on the Hamvention pictures. Him and his he brought his wife and his two boys, I think, and both of his sons passed their tech test at Hamvention. His wife passed hers. It was crazy cool, man. So it's awesome.
And you see the Hope Lee, or not the Hope, the Lee family. I know Hope Lee is one of the kids who presented at the Hamvention. They have like a big Facebook following right now. They're down in Costa Rica or PJ2T? I forget the country. Doing DX down there. Yeah, PJ6Y that is.
That's awesome.
So they're having a lot of fun and a lot of young people there. So that's another really good thing we can consider. Like, they have the Youth DX Association, Youth DX YDXA I forget what it's called, was a thing that you take a bunch of youngsters down to a big contest club and contest for a whole weekend. So
That'll get them hooked. You're living proof of that. So.
Absolutely.
Well, man, we really appreciate you coming on, Sterling. It was great to meet you in person at Hamvention. It was awesome to catch up with you at the red light. It's been even more cool to have you here on the show. We enjoy following you on Facebook or Twitter, rather. I can't do YouTube much just because of my connection here. But, folks, we'll have all of his connections, every way that you can find out what Sterling Coffee's up to, along with some links, some pictures and whatnot from the Yoda trip. And you'll find it all at hamradio360.com. Sterling, my battery is dying. My computer's telling me it's over with.
No.
Yep, that's what that was. So let me get out of here. Man, thank you again for coming on with us.
It was really my pleasure. I'm just really glad to be able to talk about this and hopefully get the ball rolling on Yoda Region 2.
You know, it
Yoda US or Yoda wherever. Like, we're going to do this, and this will be awesome.
Well, let us know what we can do to help, and myself and the listeners will do everything we can.
All right.
Another big thank you to Sterling for hanging out with us here on Show 59er of the Ham Radio 360 podcast. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. Great to catch up with Sterling. Love that guy. He's an awesome dude. Appreciate what he's doing for the youth in the hobby. And I know that in time to come, there will be many, many people say, thank you, Sterling Coffee. Thank you for helping us carry the torch with the amateur radio hobby. Hey, don't forget, mtcradio.com is offering you a discount on every single thing you purchase from their site. Enter the coupon code HAMRadio360 to save, I don't know how much, but you'll know when you enter in your coupon code. It's a random coupon code. Maybe not a random coupon code. It's a random discount for everything that you purchase. It's just a thank you for being a listener here of HamRadio360.com, the podcast. Again, thank you, Sterling. Thank you for listening. A shout out to our brand new Patreon, Andrew. He joins Alan, Donald, Ken, and Brett. Thank you guys for helping support the show. You can do that at Patreon.com. There's a link in the right sidebar at HamRadio360.com. Going to get out of here and get back with George and Jeremy in a week. I believe it's oscilloscopes, but I'm not 100% sure. Don't hold me to that. We appreciate you. We thank you for listening. We know we couldn't do it without you. Now, go out and share this thing with a friend of yours. Get them involved in the hobby. Get them listening to HamRadio360.com. Thanks so much, guys. God bless you. 73, y'all.
Thank you for listening to Ham Radio 360, brought to you by mtcradio.com. For more information about the program, visit hamradio360.com. Till next time, 73s, y'all.